Hello again, everyone. This is Gilmer, and is Gary Grigsby's Pacific War, or as referred to it as PacWar. And I just different with this playthrough. I'm going to play an old is the initial grandfather to War in the Pacific regular edition, and I think this was played this thing forever. I played it as much as play it all the time, and it's a very scaled down version of the Pacific compared to the Admiral Edition War in the Pacific. What I am doing is I'm going to do a playthrough of this just to show you what it was like. Things that I did want to mention is there is a man named Rich Dionne who made this version of PacWar 3.2.14. I will probably, well, I know I will. I will put the link to his patches and his website in the description of the episode. He's done a lot of work with this and to make it a lot better. From what I hear, people have said it's made it a lot better. I have played this patch, but I did let him know that I would play this patch and give him credit for it, and there are several others. I don't know their forums, and also in all working on these or on patching this product to make it. And so I'm going to play this game. I'm going to play the full campaign. I'm going to let the computer play the Japanese, and I'm going to give the Japanese help. And the reason I'm going to do that is because AI is not that tough. Most people say that it's almost impossible to lose the war, as the Americans have the most familiarity with on this game, and I just like the Americans. I guess maybe it's because I know that I can hardly lose, which is kind of sad, but I haven't played it all the way through, but it was fun on the Japanese side as well. But having said all that, let's go ahead and start the game. So I'm going to play Campaign 41, Japanese Computer Help Japanese, and I'm going to do the historical first move. And one of the first things that you get into is you get this display and delay. And if you select none, the goes so fast you won't even be able to hardly see it. So I'm going to put it on low and low, just because that gives you the least amount of detail, but it doesn't go so fast that you can't even watch it. And so the first thing that happens is the Japanese start bombing the bases with their airplanes. And as you can see, it runs through this whole thing. The Japanese, I mean, this was probably the first indication for the Allies that the Japanese were going to attack in the Pacific, were these bombing runs. And this is the combat report. And the Japanese Air Forces from Saigon attacked with 30 fighters and 126 bombers, 16 Allied fighters intercepted, and 82 aircraft were destroyed on the ground. And this is pretty historical that the Japanese caught everybody in the Pacific. There were so many allies in the Pacific, funny, but they caught everybody by surprise. The Australia, the Dutch have had territory in the Pacific at this time, and of course did as well. The United States of America. And so here they're attacking Singapore. Here they're attacking the Philippines, and they destroyed several airplanes on the ground. And I don't know, I can't remember, it's been so long. I don't know that if this game ever had sound, but every time I've ever played it didn't have sound, and I'm thinking it never did have sound, but I'm not positive. If it did, the sounds were very basic, very, very, MIDI sounds or computer sounds, but not the kind of sound effects that you get nowadays with games. And as you can tell, the PBYs are our Air Force, our eyes in the sky. They're task force just outside of Hawaii, and here comes the attack on Pearl Harbor. And they destroyed 116 aircraft on the ground. And here comes the attack on the actual fleet. And of course, the main targets are the battleships. I mean, if they had aircraft carrier at Pearl Harbor, they would have been attacked mercilessly. But all we had was battleships in the port, and that's what took the brunt of the attacks. And these 250-pound bombs don't really do much damage, but the torpedoes do horrendous damage. If that battleship's lucky it didn't sink. And amazingly enough, they didn't really do too much damage to my ships. I've run this patch just a couple of times, just the first turn, and usually they sink at least one battleship, sometimes two. Now we have two that are significantly damaged. One that's, should be, see, we just lost a Tennessee class battleship. And we'll probably lose at least one more if they get any more hits on these two that are very damaged. Now we have three that are very damaged. That one's probably going to sink. So we only lost one battleship actually, which is a little strange, but not very historic. But I've played this first turn a couple times, and every time it's usually 2 to 3 battleships are sunk. And as you can see, that's the Japanese task force with all their aircraft carriers. We got to sink them at some point. And then, of course, all around the Pacific, the Japanese are landing with their land forces. And here we have well, they didn't attack it, but they're going to attack it. There's a British task force that has a battleship and a battle cruiser, and it usually gets hammered. And we just had our ground forces surrendered at Wake Island. In the early part of the war, we were no threat to the Japanese with our air force or our ships or anything, to be honest. The first year or so, we were, at least up until Midway, we were completely outclassed, outnumbered in just about every area. And that they're attacking the peninsula with Singapore at the bottom. They're trying to take that whole peninsula. And then this is just weak counterattacks against the Japanese aircraft carrier force. Guam gets taken. And this is the battleship and the battle cruiser that the British had sitting at Kuantan, I think is the name. Or maybe it's another. Oh man, they didn't get damaged at all. They usually get pretty beat up. And usually I lose at least one of them. Kong's being attacked. And now they're attacking the port at Manila. They're only attacking with fighters, but they can strafe. I think they'll get one more attack against that British task force. Or maybe not. In this first turn, for the Allies, takes a pretty good while to do because there are a lot of kind of do that you won't ever have to do again, but you have to do a lot of different things, a lot of different tasks. You don't have to do all of this, but go through for playing in the background. But real music, you get hit with copy. You use some kind of generic sound if you're going to use. And then here comes the Allied supply. And okay, I'm going to save it. So here's the first screen that you can start making changes. And obviously, if you are like me and you are aggressive on saving your position, I constantly am saving. So the first thing I do is do the save, and then you have the orders menu and you can click accept, and then this is the main screen, and they have several different things that you can do. And the first thing that I always do is I click HQ and I find HQ control. Wait a minute. HQ, find an HQ. Okay. So I don't know if that means FC means full control. He might have changed it in this patch to so that you don't have to go through and change every one of these. Find an HQ. Now let's see. Find an HQ. Yeah, so you got to go through all of these and change it to human control unless you want the computer to control it. And honestly, the computer doesn't do a very good job. Oops. So I go through all of these and I change it to human control when I first started up. And let's see. There we go. And then you just cycle through every single one of these because you don't want I never want the computer controlling my assets because the computer does some screwy things sometimes, and you'll find yourself losing ships for no reason whatsoever other than the computer made a bad choice. So I always change this. Find an HQ. Almost done. I know this is kind of monotonous, but I don't know why they've set it like this. When it was first programmed, I don't know why it was programmed like this, but it is, and it's something you have to deal with. So I don't know if that's the same if you play the Japanese or not, but I know it is on the American side or the Allied side. HQ control, human control, and then one more. Human full control. Okay, so now you got every HQ is under your control. And that is a very important item if you have, because as I mentioned before, you don't want anything happening that you didn't select. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is change the production of airplanes, and really I guess that's it. All you change is to do that, you have to go to the city where the production is, and Sydney has a production, and I'm going to change that to P-40 Warhawk, because the P-40 Warhawk I believe is better than the Wearway. And at this point, which isn't that early in the war, the P-40 is your best fighter. And I believe that your best medium bomber is the B-25, but for some reason you have to select the B-26 there. It doesn't let you change that, but okay. So how I do this is I hit F6 to, when you get to the city, you select this, you hit F6, and you figure out which ones you want to change, and then you change them. F6, F4 Wildcat, and you want a good mix of F4Fs and P-40s, because P-40s cannot fly off aircraft carriers, and F4Fs can fly. You really don't want to lose reduction of the line of P-40, because it goes from P-40 to the P, or however you want to look at it, it progresses. So you want to go P-40, and then eventually you'll be able to build P-51s, P-40, P-47s, and P-38s. So you want a good mix of all of those. And then here you have England, F6. It won't let you change it. Oh, it will let you change that one. If you don't have a choice, 25, always take the B-26 Marauder. And then let's see. Nope. Seattle is where the B-17 is built. And I believe that is it. Seems like there should be more, but I could be wrong on that, but oh, nope, you don't want to do that, not yet. So, Central U.S., B-26, I guess that's it. Now, the next thing that you want to do is, and you don't have to do this all in any specific order, but you want to start putting out your submarines. So what you do is you just click on a place where you want them, and it says you have 12 Salmon from Manila, and you want to go ahead and place them in places you think the Japanese ships will be steaming through. And I always put it close to bases, because I think the ships like to go by the bases, and plus when they're coming out of port, that's where they go. And let's see, where else? Let's do one here. And that's it. That's all you can do. But hopefully these submarines will get in a couple of attacks. They're not very effective early in the war. They do get very much more effective. The next thing I do is I try to save as many aircraft as possible. On which A for airfield. So Singapore has these 5 air combat wings, and I want to get them to safety. And how I usually do that for Singapore is I try to take the Singapore planes and put them up here somewhere where they will be a little bit more safe. And how you do that is you select the city that you want the airplanes to transfer to, and say, and then click it again, and it brings up this menu, and you click air transport, and then you click on the base that's losing the air wings, and then you click on the ones that you want to move. So I'm going to do this. So all 4 of those were able to move. So now they're all in Rangoon. There's one other down here, and the reason it didn't come up is because its range is not as good as the others, and it can't fly all the way to Rangoon. So what I want to do is find an intermediate airport so that I can get it closer. And the wildebeest or wildebeest or whatever they call that is able to transfer to Rangoon. So this icon shows a blue icon, and I can't see it very well either. It looks like 2 combat men, and that means that there are enemy troops. We control the base, but they're in that base, I believe. And W, which it is. If you click W, it brings up your land combat formations. And I want to get these guys out of there. They're not going to win this battle. So I'm going to march from this. Wait a minute. Oh, let's see. If you hit F1, that goes to a close-up view of the map. F2, I don't know what F2 does. F3 gives you the land march paths. And so you can't march from Kuantan to Singapore because there's not a land march, but you can march to there. And the only one I could do is one of them, because the other one's readiness is not high enough. His readiness, I think, has to be in the 50s for him to be able to move. And let's see, these guys both can move. And the reason I'm doing this is these guys are not gonna hold back the Japanese at this point. So I'm going to take them all down to Singapore. And always, if you left click on it, you can activate and divide a division. And if it doesn't have a money sign beside it, then it's active. So I'm going to deactivate all these so that they will gain readiness quicker. So really, I'm going to move all of my aircraft into a better place. So I'm going to check some of these. So this one still has some aircraft. These guys are in trouble because the Japanese are coming there pretty quickly. So what I want to do is air transfer these guys. And where did I say that? Was that it? Yeah. So then you have to, and fight of a size of 2 or bigger. And heavy bombers it has to be a 4 or bigger. So you have to find a good couple of airfields. That's right. I have to move them over this way first. And then up. And then move them. I think I can move the heavy bombers. Yeah. And the PBYs are very long range as well, so you can get them to come down pretty easily. So what I'm doing is I'm just transferring air units to areas where they will not be lost. And that guy, he's in trouble. Is it there that I usually do it to? And then, yeah. So as you can see, I'm getting them out of harm's way, because it doesn't make any sense to just lose your airfield or air units for no reason. It costs you victory points. So then, I always get them out, especially the PBYs. The PBYs are very important because they can attack subs, and they can also be spot ships on the ocean. So let's see, where are some more airfields? And one way you can do this is if you click on this, say I'm on, this is Rabal, and it says display airfield. If you click display button, it says display army. And so then if you right click on it when it says display army, it'll show you if it has army. That one doesn't. So let's find a place that has army. See? So click display again, and it says task force. There are no task force here. Click display again, and it says port. And that's what's in Sydney's port. Now I can make a task force. Create a task force. And let's just call it cargo. It always asks you if you want to auto select the ships you want in your task force. I always say no and do it myself. And I pick the port, and then you can just choose which ones you want. So now I have a task force there, and it says display task force. So if I right click on it when it displays task force, it'll bring up the task forces at that base. And there's only one, so this is the one it picked up. So if you right click it, it goes back out of that screen. So anyway, there's some more air wings that I want to get out of harm's way. So there's another wear away, and we're going to get that. My throat's getting a little dry. So now we want to air transfer. Damn it. Air transfer. And the reason why I want to say the wearways wings is because I can actually change that. If you click on it, you can change it, and you can change it to different airplanes. I thought I would be able to change this to an American airplane type, but it's not letting me. But you want to save as many air wings as possible. Well, anyway, that is, I want to do a let's play of it. I'm going to keep going. I still have a lot more things to do in my setup or my first turn. Let's display army. A lot of my troops are going to come from the USA, of course. And the 24th Infantry and the 25th Infantry are building up. They're not really ready to fight yet. I've got the CB engineers, which are very important. And then I have these defense battalions, which are smaller, but they are usually much better trained, have better experience, and they have better readiness. So they're usually pretty good to have with invading forces. Down here in San Diego, I had the Saratoga. I want to get it out and get it into battle somewhere. Right here, I have the Enterprise. It is not in port. I have two cruisers moving. And then I have another carrier, the Lexington, up here. I want to get all three of those carriers together. And actually what I want to do first is what you want to do is you want to click on this and you look at it. Fighter experience 70. That's not bad. But I'm going to put that on training for now. Mission, training. And I'm just going to do that for all of my carriers because we're not going to put them into combat just yet. So we want to get these guys as experienced and trained up as possible. And so we'll put all of their airplanes on training, on a training mission. And if you can get them all up into the 90s, that is the best. That is ideal. And I have a battleship here as well. And that's going to do it for now.